Are we breaking the fourth wall or not?
We're breaking the fourth wall.
We're breaking the fourth wall. All right.
Yeah, we're breaking
All
the
right,
fourth
there we
wall.
go. Yeah, I'm James. I'm an editor based in Brooklyn. Initially from Nigeria. Live in Brooklyn now. Been living in Brooklyn since 2002. Went to Hunter College and used to work for Vice News. Now I'm about to start working for BET. And yeah, that's my story.
There we go.
Yeah. Nah, I remember one night back when I used to work at this company, McGilla, we were doing like HGTV shows, like house renovation shit.
Yeah.
And we used to, the office was down in Fidei, like on Broad Street. And once in a while, we'll like take the interns out just to like team building kind of shit.
Yeah.
So we'll all go out. And one night we went out with the interns and the executives came just to like, yo, we're gonna buy the bar. You guys just keep drinking. And we're drinking, you know. It was one of those days where I remember because it was really busy that day and I skipped lunch because I was like, I just need to get this work done. So I'm on an empty stomach, right? And we at the White Horse Tavern down in Fidei.
Yeah.
That's on Stone Street.
Yeah.
Bro, not to interject, I was in an empty stomach too. But go
Yeah.
ahead. I just remember that.
I always just ate a piece of sandwich this morning. So
Yeah. No, I'm talking about that night. I had
that
like
night,
I had the wing. Yeah, I had the wings towards the end.
Yeah.
So
that's how it usually happens,
those wings are
man.
good.
That's
That
how it
was
usually
fine, yeah.
happens.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, empty stomach. We at the White Horse Tavern, and executives come down. They're drinking. Everyone's drinking. It's free. And I remember getting up, going to the bathroom, and it's that thing, right? You go to the bathroom and you look at the mirror and you're like, oh fuck, oh I'm done.
Yeah.
That's it. And then right there in the bathroom, I call my cab, and cab shows up. I walk right out the bathroom, grab my coat off the chair, and just walk straight out. And I remember the next morning, people be like, yo, we just saw you walk out. Is everything okay? I was like, yeah, everything was not okay. But I had to get my ass home, is what the problem was.
I try to do the same thing.
You gotta go. You gotta go.
Yeah. So Danny had an episode too. Don't let Danny fool you. he had a couple of episodes.
I mean, listen, yeah, it happens.
It happens. Yeah.
It does. There was one time, it was my boy Adam. I don't know if you've met Adam before. He's also an editor. He and his wife got married, and it was at their reception. I think it was not here. It was in Long Island City, and we went out, we're drinking, and then we went to the party and we started drinking there too. And it was the only time that my wife, she wasn't as drunk as I was. Usually it's the other way around. Usually I'm the one that's all right, we gotta get the white girl home. she's tripping. She's been drinking too much black liquor. You gotta go home now. But that night I was so fucked up. Like she was like, I had to help you out the door of the place. Cause I remember getting up and I remember feeling like everything is like sideways. And she was like, yeah, that's because you were sliding this way. And I had to like, she like was behind me, just like helped me into the cab.
It's hard too, because when you're at that point, it's like a dead body.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
After I left your Christmas party, I was dead.
Really?
Yeah.
Yo. I still have video.
Friday. Well, Thursday night I went to a gallery event.
Right.
And we were drinking. Kevin Lyles got honored by the UNCF.
Okay.
And I was done. We went to Legos.
Yeah. Times Square.
I've never been to Legos.
I've been Times Square, man.
I'm thinking about jollof rice right now. I didn't eat it yet. I saw the plate because we ate already. I was just drinking.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to get some jollof.
Yeah. Nah, my
It's the old Onyx.
Yeah.
Karaoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there in Times Square.
Oh, okay.
It's nice, Joe.
Yeah, my brother Daya, it was his wife's birthday, and he got her one of those like cheesy boat rides where you like eat and then the boat goes to like Ellis Island. You see the statue and then you come back, and we did that, and then they all was like, "Yo, let's all go to Lagos, man. Just hang out there." And we went. It was like, yeah, we were there till like I think 2 or 3 in the morning. Just, it's good music, good food. Yeah, I like Lagos. It's a good spot. We should go, man. Next time I go, I'll let you know. I'm gonna get the Nigerians. I'll call you. We'll all go.
When is it popping? Like, when is it like something?
I don't know.
I mean, we went on a Saturday night.
I was already lit, so I came in.
That's the magic.
I was dancing.
That's the magic sauce. It's when you're already.
Yeah, when you're in pre-game and you got that little nice buzz. Yeah.
It's like you walk in and the dance floor could be empty, but you're like, fuck that. Yeah. I'm on there.
Okay.
I have a video of it too.
Yeah. Bro, we on camera, bro. We on camera.
You gotta blur that out.
Yeah, you gotta blur. We're looking at it.
Yo.
Oh man, but in London, went to my real estate colleagues out there. They brought me. One of them was from Sierra Leone, the other one was from Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
They brought me to another spot. I forgot what it's called, but it's a Nigerian spot.
Okay.
Security guard. It was cool.
Yeah.
Security guard trying to play with you. Where are you from?
Oh,
I said he's from New York. The girls was like, he's from New York.
Yeah.
Oh, you got money.
Yeah.
It's going to be $50.
Yeah.
Oh no.
This was in London?
It was free though.
Yeah.
It was in London.
That's when you were with Andrew.
No, Andrew came the third time. It's the second time I went this year.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Andrew came out. I was happy he came out.
Yeah.
No,
we trying to go to Lagos actually, not like the real Lagos.
That's what I thought you were talking about until I.
No. We're trying to go to. So my boys, they were like my groomsmen when I got married.
Mm-hmm.
They've never been to Africa, and to be honest, it's kind of shameful, but I haven't been back since we came back in 2002. So it's been over 20 years. So I've been trying to go.
Sound like my dad.
It's been rough. It's kind of. So my sister's been, because her husband's also Nigerian, and he goes regularly. He goes like once a year. Her kids haven't been yet. Uriel is like 9, Abby's like 4. So I was like, yo, we should do like a big family trip, because it'll be. I thought it'd be really interesting if I go back, but then I go with my nephew Uriel and Abby, my niece, and I'm getting this experience of it from I haven't been since I was 13, 12. And the kids, they're getting it from they've never been at all. And then my sister, she's been a couple times. So like it's like 3 levels of like people who are experiencing it. My wife has never been either. And I think that could be interesting just to like go in that fashion of like I'm now just going by myself. I'm going with people either A, have been before multiple times, or B, my niece and nephew who have never been, and also kids, and my wife too, who's never been, but it's an adult. You know, kind of like get that experience of it. And then so my boys too, groomsmen, they're like, yo, we want to come too, yo.
Yeah.
And we've never been either. So I was like, yeah, let's all go down there, man. Let's go hang out. So I think we're trying to plan that for maybe next year.
I think that'd be a good look. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to go to Haiti next week.
Word.
Haiti's too many things going down in Haiti right now.
Okap is north.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to do a cruise though.
Yeah.
To Okap.
So they were doing this spring break thing. It's called Okap Escapes. It's really called Cap Haitien. North of Haiti. The cruises go to La Basie. It's right in that area.
Okay.
But Haitians being Haitians, they
Oh,
overbooked. So I booked the hotel.
Oh, you were telling me.
Hotel
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? And I, reached out to Okap Escapes. Their packages was gone. My cousins was going too.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, can I book through, like, I'm coming only on the weekend.
Yeah.
Can I book directly through the hotel? They said yes.
Okay.
Booked the hotel. And then I get an email. I booked it like March 3rd. I get an email March 9th and 10th. I just recently saw an email like last week. last week. So this is March 15th, March 16th.
Yeah.
Saying, as per your request, we have canceled your hotel reservation. I'm like, I never canceled anything. I already booked my Spirit flight.
Yeah.
Only Spirit flies in directly.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I tried contacting them. I get somebody at the front desk. So okay, I'm gonna give you the number for the boss.
Yeah.
Calling the boss, no, he doesn't pick up. But the guy, he's like, listen, I want to know what's the update. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
And he was like, listen. Since he's not picking up, he's not answering you. I'll help you out, but it's gonna cost money. I'm like, what you talking about? We're not paying money. We didn't scam you.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah, I mean, when we went to so my friend Allison, she works for one of those Bravo shows too, Below Deck, and they film all over the Caribbean. They actually just left Grenada like 2 weeks ago, but last year they were in St. Lucia. So she was gonna be in St. Lucia for 2 months. It always falls around the same time of my wife's spring break from work. So she had a week off. I could take whatever time off I need. So we're like, yo, let's go to St. Lucia just to hang out with Allison and leave New York in the winter. So we went to St. Lucia last year. And so back up like a year before, we went to Antigua for a honeymoon. And that was like, because of COVID and everything, that was a lot easier because when we got to Antigua, they were like, all right, here's how you're going to need to get out of Antigua when you have to leave. At your hotel, there'll be a room. They'll call you to go there. You do your test there, negative, then you get a certificate, and then you go to the airport, and then you can fly. When we got to St. Lucia, though, we never got any of that, so we forgot that not only are you coming into a country, but before you leave to go back to America, there's a whole other bureaucracy that takes place, too. We forgot about that whole thing. So on the day we have to leave, I remember reading the doc. I was like, oh, shit, we need a negative test. So we went to the store, bought some, like, quick rapid test. We took that. I took a picture of it.
48 hours or something like that?
Well, that's the thing. We didn't really know.
Okay.
So, and we got to the airport after we left St. Lucia, our hotel. They were like, oh, this is not, you have to go to like an actual doctor to.
Oh, wow.
And like our flight's going to be in 2 hours. And I'm like, all right, well, it takes an hour to go back into town. So that's not going to work. Like, what else can we do? They're like, well, we can bring a doctor to the airport to administer the test for you. And I was like, okay, how much is that going to cost? They're like, $500 each. I was like, fucking kidding me? $500 each? That's it?
Yeah.
That's the price? They're like, yeah. I knew they were like ripping us off. Like, and like they knew, it's almost like that mutual understanding that you're being ripped off. You're like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They know they can rip us off and I can't do anything. I know they can rip me off and I can't do anything either. So like, sure. So go to the ATM, right? And like, listen, you're getting jacked. Sorry. You put yourself in this position. So we go to the ATM, took out a bunch of money. We're like, all right, where's the doctor? Where's the doctor? Like, doctor's en route. Just hold tight. I'm like, our flight's gonna take off, man. We gotta. Doctor comes in. It's this lady. Not a doctor, clearly. She goes, all right, come with me, y'all.
She came in like the little girl from the
I swear to God, she comes in. She goes, come with me, y'all. We go with her. I'm thinking, all right, we're going to this nice secure room where we can take off our masks and she could. We go into the back room where the offices are. Everyone, it's like 10 people in the room, no windows. People on their computers working. And she goes, all right, here's where we're going to do the test. I'm like, for real? This is the secure facility where we're being tested for COVID. We're in the room with no windows with 10 other people who are just working. I don't think this is smart. What if one of us has COVID, then what's going on here? Whatever. So she gives us the swab, blah, blah, put the mask back on. And she goes, all right, you guys wait the tests and I'll let you know.
During that time, how much time you had left for your flight?
Maybe like an hour. So we still had a good time, but like we're starting to get nervous because we hadn't even been through the gate yet.
Mm-hmm.
So like maybe 10 minutes past she comes, she goes, all right, you guys are tested negative. You should be able to fly. Here's your certificate. Look down at the certificate for the doctor's name. Different name from hers. Not even her name on the thing. I'm like, all right, you know what? I don't want to argue this here. Here's your money. Let me just go back home, man. Like, the whole time I'm just like, yo, they fucking ripped us off.
Yeah,
like
but let me
they
ask
called
you a
some
question.
lady like next door, like
Yeah,
yo,
but
put
what-
on the lab coat,
That's what she
come
did.
by the airport real
Yeah.
quick.
But why didn't you just negotiate with the airline?
It was too late.
It was too late.
It was
okay.
too late. They were just like, by the time I mean, the smart thing would be just to go back to town and
Right.
go to a doctor that would probably charge us like $20 and then go back. But like, it was an hour back into town.
Yeah.
So like, it was just not gonna work. Like they knew
Which airline? Because you could have get a like exchange,
which
like
airline
a change,
was it? I don't remember.
a change fee.
They knew.
Like
They
change fee
knew.
is like $50. They were waiving stuff during that time. Yeah.
Yeah, they knew they had us in the vice grip,
Yeah.
and they're just like, you
Because
can't.
that's the price of another room for a night.
Yeah, right.
It
Yeah.
sounds like Dior to me. Like you take your swab, you go up to the next lady to get your test result. Okay, negative. Next person, negative.
I know.
Yes,
It was
negative.
so
Yeah.
it
It
was
was
so
crazy.
backwards. I was like, damn, man, I feel like I'm back in Nigeria.
Oh, man.
Like,
The hustle
you know,
game is serious.
like quick story. So when my dad would go back to Nigeria to like visit us when we were still kids there, he would go with his friends and they would like pick him up at the airport. His friends all live in Nigeria. They've never left. He'll be the only one who's
Right.
like, you know, the foreigner, but he's also from Nigeria. So, and he will do all he can to like blend in with them when he flies to Nigeria. So it's funny. He would tell us a story about how like one time he flew into Nigeria. His friends came to pick him up. There's 4 of them, and then him. So it makes 5 in total. And they got in the car. They're driving it from the airport. He's in the back seat. There's a friend to the right, friend to the left, and he's in the middle seat in the back seat. Friend driving, friend in the passenger seat. So 5 of them in the car, and they pass through the. It's almost like a traffic stop in Nigeria, but it's just a bribe stop, right? It's like the cop stops you and is like shakes you down, and the whole time he's just waiting for you to offer him money so they can let you go. So like they get to one of those, and they know the drill, right? And it's like, all right, give him a little handshake with a little 20 on it, blah blah. And the cop looks in the car, and he goes, "There's an American in here." And my dad is like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're not from here." And like he spots him like easy. My dad used to be like, I don't know how he knew, because like my dad isn't American, he's Nigerian. Like he had been living in America for like 10 years, but he's still Nigerian. He's like, I didn't give anything away. I wasn't dressing differently. I wasn't wearing anything to give away that I had any money or anything like that. Just by him looking at my dad, he's like, yeah, you're different. Something about you says you're not in this struggle.
So he wanted more money.
Yeah, he was like, yo, all right, cough it up. It's always funny whenever I like fly somewhere and I run into that kind of bureaucracy, kind of like in St. Lucia, what happened to us. I was just like, yeah. After a while, you're like, yeah, all right, this is how things are going over here. I'm not in good old America anymore.
No. That's in Haiti too, right? There's a lot of corruptness everywhere. Yeah. Didn't they kidnap a family member of yours? Yeah. They're okay, right?
Yeah, but her neighbor, my aunt got kidnapped back in February last year, and her neighbor, I heard she's not even like the same. She's like mute, basically. She's not speaking.
Shit.
Yeah, so
Traumatized?
Yeah, it's rough.
My aunt, she had like a little scar here on her forehead.
It's rough, man.
I don't know how much they ended up paying. My cousins ended up paying, but that was a little dark moment in the family.
I bet.
Yeah, so,
it's not easy.
But those 2 people now that just got kidnapped recently, the families are pleading for help. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Especially when, I mean, this happens in Nigeria too, and especially when they know you're from a family that live in America. It's like, all right, easy money right there, and it's crazy.
Man, Haiti, you know how it is. No government, no nothing.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Something happens with the U.S., Mexico, Canada. Someone
Yeah.
needs to intervene over
Yeah.
You can't have this going on in your back court. You're supposed to be, 10 people.
Yeah. Nah, it's crazy.
Nah, it's rough, man. A friend of mine owns a huge property, but it takes a while for you to even. He's in Haiti. It takes a while for you to get from the entrance of the gate to the actual property, right? So there's a long driveway, and they have walls. So they they're insulated basically, right? So it's like a
Yeah,
fortress, right?
yeah.
So you barely could see what's going on inside.
Yeah.
It's like a mile or two between the driveway and the home. You know, it's pretty hidden, right?
Yeah.
And they were still able to find a way to kidnap one of them
Shit.
and ask them for ransom. And they were basically saying, you know, how is this possible that we're hidden? Nobody knows where we come in. We got tinted black cars, drives in and out, you know, but they still found a way.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Can you safeguard that? Like, can you protect that? And especially when you're isolated in the countryside.
Yeah.
Like, how realistic can you get the cops out there quickly enough in case that there's an issue?
In that sense, you have to pay for security.
You gotta pay for
Exactly.
security, yeah.
You gotta pay
Yeah.
the hood.
Yeah. You gotta
And
pay
that's how you
somebody.
get in with what's his name, El Chapo.
Yeah.
He met somebody from Sinaloa, and
Yeah.
she's just saying, you know, although things are bad over there,
Mm-hmm.
the people they take care of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The gangs take care of us.
Mhm.
You know, so things you have to like break them off. Like
Yeah.
paying for my security. This is you. You want to
Yeah,
protect it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, well, that comes with the price, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing's free.
That or I'm killing all of
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
That's it.
The problem
That's
is you
messed
don't know how many's coming.
Yeah.
You don't know
Well,
when they
yeah.
come in, how many's coming, how they come in. So it's like the best thing to do is just get the security
Yeah.
and protect yourself and your family. But I do want to like make a quick transition because I want to know more about like the editing part as an editor.
Mm.
Like, what is it that you guys actually do as an editor?
I mean,
Like, if you give us the totality of it.
the most basic terms is just it's putting picture after picture to tell a story. It's very, you know, in the most, you know, because it's funny because we in the last few months, I guess, the whole AI thing has become huge, right? And it's kind of like it makes things feel like people having more discussions about like, is my job gonna get phased out by artificial intelligence? And as an editor, not just AI, but like, you know, something like TikTok or YouTubers, it comes to a point where they're all doing my job basically. You know, editing is what, you know, creating packages. You say you're a YouTuber, you're basically editing. Say you're someone who has a online following and you provide video daily to your online followers, you're an editor because you're providing that and you're editing your video to make content that people like to watch. So in some ways, you know, you're like, as an editor, you're thinking, man, is that my job that guy's taking over there?
Right.
But I never worry about that personally because I'm always like, there's way more to that, to editing, than just that.
Way
Right?
more.
It's not, I'm a 13-year-old kid with a camera. Now I'm an editor because 20,000 people follow me and watch my videos. That's not. It's way more complicated. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to I'm trying to like, yo, you kids are about to take my job. Like I'm not. And I'm not trying to make the job sound even more mystique or mysterious than it actually is. It's like I said, when you break it down to the most basic terms, it is just putting image after image and hoping it touches someone and they get a reaction. You get a reaction out of an audience. That's basically it, or whoever's watching. But like I said, to me, it's way more involved, and you know, there's editors who are doing things today that I look up to, and I'm like, yo, I wish I one day can like cut the way you do it, man. And so that to me, I'm not trying to make it sound like I know all about the editing. Ask me all your editing questions, I'll answer it. That's not it at all, because there's people who are on a way bigger level than I am, and they're like, yeah.
You edit like more TV shows and
Yeah, I do TV. And even in that culture, in that subsect too, right? I'm not, you know, some kind of big shot. But what I can say is I've been editing now for over 10 years. And what I can say is, as you go along, you learn new things and you pick up new ideas and you pick up new ways of doing things. And over my 10 plus years, I'm still relatively young in the editing world. Like there are people who do this for 30 years, and there's no way I can stand toe to toe with those guys because it's just not possible.
Right.
And that's what I mean when I say there's more to this job than just what you can do in your bedroom if you learn a bit of Final Cut, because that time that you spend doing stuff, it matters a lot, you know. I'm sure there are other professions where time is a big factor in how good you are. When I look at editing, that's the first thing I always think about is the time you spend in it is paramount, because like you go from being able to put the images in the right place to being able to extract an emotion from whoever's watching it, and that's key. And that part to me is when you become one of the masters. Is when you sit two editors together, one cuts something for you and you watch it and you're like, yeah, that's good, and then another cuts something for you, you watch it and you're like, damn, that touched me somewhere that I didn't think you could in a 3-minute video. And that to me, that's the difference.
It could be the
same exact footage,
yeah,
same exact idea that you give both, but the way one does it versus the way the other does it, you see that factor of like, yo, you've been doing it for a very long time because and it's also not a singular job, right? You work with producers, you work with directors, and they're also human who have a certain idea in their heads when they go film or when they read the script, right? So I can hand out 3 copies of the same script to everyone in this room, and we all read it. And in the process of us reading it, we all have different ideas as to, okay, let's go shoot this thing each separately. You have a different idea of how you want to shoot it. You have a different idea of how you want to shoot it. I'll have a different idea of how I want to shoot it, And that's the whole point when the collaboration comes in, because now let's make it, we're all making the same movie, but you're the director and you're the producer and I'm the editor. Now we've all got the same thing that we need to make, but we've all got different ideas of how we want to make it. And so as an editor too, that's the other part that I enjoy about the job, is the fact that I get to incorporate what others are thinking. And that could be tricky too, because then that could be, they have this idea and I'm married to my idea and there's a friction,
Right.
Or the director thinks, no, this is what I think the movie should be. And I'm thinking, I don't see that. I see something completely different. Then how do we compromise? How do we go, all right.
As an editor, you can say that to a director?
It takes some time. It takes a while. You don't just start spouting that shit, because it's not how to work.
Yeah.
Especially, and not just because, it could be an editor or it could be a director that's older than me or even younger than me. It still doesn't mean because I'm older than the director, I get to say, yo, you don't know what you're talking about. Because it's not. It's, like I said, we work in a very subjective field. So what you're thinking, because of your life experiences, and say you see a story, you initially latch onto something in that story because of your story. And then I read the same piece of paper and I latch onto another part of that story because of my story. You see what I mean? So like, it changes.
Right.
So there's no, at least from my perspective, when I work, I don't see any room for this is how it has to be and this is how it must be. I think that's foolish, because it's like, we're all different.
Yeah. And we all bring different
ideas. Yeah, exactly. We bring different things through our daily life since we were kids.
So it's subjective to the party.
Yeah,
is what
exactly.
The party wants. So walk me through it in terms of, is there a storyboard and you guys are looking at the storyboard and saying, this is what I see for this scene, this is what I see for that scene? Or it's like, is based off the script. Or
It's usually based on the script. I mean, storyboard will come in more if you're doing like film, but if you're doing TV and you're doing, for example, what I did at Vice, it's more okay. The producers have gone out. They've done their pre-production stuff where it's like, all right, this is what we want to go film. This is what the story's going to be about. We'll go film it. And they go out, they film it, and then they bring it back to the office, even before I touch it. And then they write the script of like, all right, this is what we think it should look like when we put it on TV. And then I come in and then I read the script and I watch the footage, what they shot, and I go, okay. Now this is the part where the time thing, like I said, comes in. Because, for example, when I first started at Vice, I want to say maybe the first 6 months or 8 months, I was basically just like, okay, here's what they want on the script. I'm going to put that together for them, and here you go, right? Because you're new, you're like, all right, I'm still trying to assimilate. I'm trying to understand who everyone is. I'm doing that. I'm basically just radio cutting what's on the script because it's like, I'm trying to feel my way around here.
Mm-hmm.
But like after a while, and this is the thing about time, you do it long enough, then you start realizing, all right, I can start letting y'all know what I think now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I read the script and then I go, okay, this is cool, but I don't know if I'm buying it. I think this scene we have over here, I think it'll work better if we moved it to the top. And we move what's in the top right now, we put that in the middle. That comment and the I don't want to say the bravery because it's not really that. Just the idea that you can share that doesn't come on day one. It just doesn't.
It comes after credibility.
Yeah, after you've done what you need to do, you've delivered, and you kind of lose that because I feel like everyone has this imposter syndrome, where you're new at a job and you're like, especially if you work as an editor who works in freelance and you go from place to place to place.
Mm-hmm.
Once you go to a place for the first time, you're like, all right, I still get that when I work on a new piece. I'm like, I'll have this thing in my back of my head. It's like, yeah, how am I gonna do this? And you do it because it's your job and you know how to do it. But the beginning part, at least for me as an editor, starting is always the toughest part. Like, I always joke that after my first rough cut and I get the notes back and I don't get a note that says, what the fuck is this? What have you done here?
Right.
And everyone's like, yeah, this is going well. And then I'm like, all right, cool. I got it. It's easy. I'll just, I'll incorporate what you want. I'll throw in the things that I think is working, and we'll work our way till we finish it.
Mm.
But before I get to that first cut where I show people what I've done, I'm always very nervous because I'm like, yo, what if my vision of this is completely opposite to what the people who I'm working with are expecting?
Yeah.
But it usually doesn't happen that way. Most of the time, it's usually like, all right, yeah, I think this is going well.
Yeah.
This is how I think we can work to make it better, or this is something I think is not working, and then we work towards it. Mm-hmm. So, for example, we did one of my favorite. I don't know if favorite is the right word, but one of my most involved piece I worked on at Vice was about the aftermath of the Buffalo shooting at the Tops grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like maybe a couple months after the shooting that we went back and talked to like people who live there about like what life is like now after this shit happened. Mm-hmm. And we talked to this man who he went to that Tops all the time to buy groceries, but now he's like, whenever I go there, I'm just like terrified. I'm looking over my shoulder every time. I'm nervous walking in. And so it turns out that he had been going to a completely different Tops because it's a chain grocery store, almost like Associated here in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Not here, but in Brooklyn. And so he would go to one away from his home. Like he would drive further just to go to a different one after what happened. So when we met up with him, he was like, you know what, I want to go to that one. And we were like, yo, can we follow you and film it? He's like, yeah, that's fine. So we actually, the first time he stepped back into that store, we had him on camera. And I remember he did this interview with us afterwards where he's like, you know, have a son. And I'm like, I'm terrified for him whenever he goes anywhere, blah, blah. It was like very raw emotional piece of like black people who live in a city like Buffalo, trying to like move forward, you know, trying to go about their lives of doing very simple stuff of like, I'm just gonna go to the grocery store and buy some food, right? And that simple act has become such a big mountain in front of them to overcome because of what happened, you know. One of our scenes was also at a meeting of the community leaders who were like, you know, how are we gonna move forward? And I remember because it's New York, Jumaane Williams was there, the New York City, I forget what his title is now. And it's all just like black leaders of this community who are sitting together. And it was very raw, like the emotion, the conversation, you know, to a point where like someone got up and was like, I don't trust the white people in this room right now, you know, because we had Vice there who were like filming. And so a couple of the producers and the shooters for Vice are white. And this guy got up and was like, I don't trust these guys because why should I? Like, what happened at Tops was this white kid drove miles and miles to a black neighborhood and shot a bunch of black people and killed them. Like, so, like, I'm saying that because, like, this conversation got really real. Like, yeah, like, you know, grown men crying. One man got up and was like, I'm telling every black person I know in this city, go and buy a gun right now. And another person got up and said, that's not the way. And they got into a shouting match. Like, it was just, you know, to the point where, like, when we started editing it, I remember talking to my producer, who's he's not white, but he's also not black. I think he's Latino, and then the producer ahead of him, he's a black man too, and we all just like, yo, let's take a pause because I feel like we need to treat this sensitive. Yeah, and we needed to like, we wanted to tap into that feeling that we have when we first watched the footage, right? As black men, you know, as a black editor and the producer who will greenlight it, he's also a black man. He's like, yo, we need to live in this for a minute. Let's not rush it because it was gonna be on TV, but we wanted to do it in a way that still kept the rawness of it, you know, that emotion. Like I said, this 60-year-old black man who's got a child who grew up in that town, who hadn't been back to the store, who for whatever reason decided, all right, while we're here is when he wants to go back, and all the emotion of that. And then this meeting that we had where everyone just said what was in their mind, you know, and it got really, really, really tough. So like that piece, it was such a unique experience because we got, you know, we were telling this story about tragedy, and it almost, you know, when you work in post-production like I do, there's like a wall between what you're working on and you, because you need to have that wall because you want to be able to tell the story, and in some fashion you need, there's a separation that's required because, you know, you want to be able to properly lay it down, and it's almost hard to do that if you're too close to it because, you know, it gets a bit muddy. But for this story particularly, it was tougher for us because we were like, yo, this is real, you know. And one of the scenes too was in the school that was in that town. They have this mentorship program now where this dude who also grew up in the town, he's older, he will go after school and will talk to the kids, and they'll just like tell them, like, you ask them like how they're feeling, what do they think, you know, like since what happened, how are they moving around the town, and the kids would talk about it. Like they would get really, really honest about what they feel too. So like it had a lot of those elements in it, and it took a while for us to do it because it just was like, yo, let's slow down because this is different, you know. So as an editor, for me personally, it was kind of like it was the almost like one of the first times that I got to like voice that thing I was saying about like, all right, this scene, I don't know if it's working, and in the end, it's funny. I think we ended up taking out that scene of the meeting because it almost just didn't fit into everything
Mhm.
because if it was so charged and important and serious and also raw that it stuck out of the whole piece.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like it just didn't belong in the story we were telling there.
It belonged, but not in that story.
Exactly.
Right.
It was required. It was powerful. I was so glad I got to see it. I was so glad we got to film it, you know, and that we were there for that. And I'm hoping they still have meetings like that every day because it was needed. But like you said, it just wasn't. It didn't belong in that story. So we ended up losing it. But that experience was kind of like
You know what's crazy? Because that sounds like a story in itself.
exactly
Like
yeah
you could actually do actual song. I mean, you can actually do a story or film behind that meeting.
yeah for sure. You know, because everyone there had, like we've said about, you know, collaboration, right? You come with your own baggage. You come with your own ideas. So the man who was like, yo, I go around now, every time I see a black person in this city, I'm like, yo, did you register for a weapon yet? You should go register for it right now. And then the guy who got up and was like, I don't agree with you, was also, he has his own background of like, yo,
Yeah. Is he
more
black
guns. I saw black, everyone in there is black,
guy?
offering their opinions. And he got up and was like, yo, I don't think adding more guns to the situation is going to solve anything. You know, let's think of a different way. And the other guy was like, all right, here we come with this Harvard bullshit. You know, like it got really like serious. Like, yo, let's talk about it. You know, and you know, it took a while for us to like wrestle with that scene, but in the end, I think we end up making the right decision of like, you know what, let's leave it out because it just wasn't. It was just too it was too real for the story we were telling.
Yeah.
You know? And we were talking earlier about, you know, Vice Showtime versus Vice nightly show, and in some way that scene fit more with a platform that had way more room to tell it, you know, because our piece was going to be like 7 minutes long, and with a scene like that it was just going to be like, you know, half the piece.
Yeah. And then you got to elaborate on it.
Exactly.
Too. Like,
yeah,
what
you
led
can't
to
just
this?
put it down there
Right,
and then
right,
walk
right.
away from it.
Yeah.
So
Seems like a prime time special. That's
it was.
Yeah.
You talking about it, I could visualize.
Oh yeah.
You, like seeing everything, I can see it. And that's
No.
even the story too.
Yeah, and you can even extrapolate from it, right? You can like you grab that man who was like, yo, I go around telling everyone get a weapon, and you follow him and you see what he has to say. You follow him to his home and talk to him in depth. And the guy who disagrees with him, you talk to him too and go, you know, what do you how did you arrive at this
What led to this?
Yeah.
What gave you this thought, this idea?
Yeah, it's that idea, and not only that, what gave you this idea that you're gonna come to this meeting and you're gonna express that idea in a room full of people who are hurting, you know, who just want some sort of justice for something you can't really get justice for, really, because they're dead, you know. And you're like, yo, I'm gonna come to this meeting, and then not only come to this meeting, I'm gonna be the guy who counters and asks for, in your version, more calm in the face of people who are very, very angry, and rightfully so. Like, think about it. Some kid just came up to our town and killed a bunch of people for what? Because of our skin color.
Yeah.
Like, that's enough to get mad.
Yeah, but how hard was it for you to let that go?
I mean, I don't know. It was it like I said, we let it live within us for a bit longer than we usually do for pieces like that because like I said, it's a short one. It had a quick turnaround as everything we did was, but this one I felt like we kind of like, and I mean, I'm bringing it up here
Yeah.
for a reason
Yeah.
because
Rightly
it clearly
so.
still
Yeah,
lives
it
with
lives
me,
still,
right?
yeah.
It's not like I buried it in the past and
Mhm.
I moved on. I still think about that scene and that piece specifically. And it's funny when I finally told everyone advice that this is the end. I'm leaving. I told very few people, and that producer that I worked with, he hit me up like separately, and I don't, yeah, I never told him, but he found out, and he like, yo, I'm gonna text him like, yo, I'm sad to hear that you're leaving, like, so we still share that bond of working on that piece together, and that's how much it like affected us working behind the scenes. And that's even we were not even on, I mean, I wasn't, he was on set, I wasn't even on set, I'm just watching it from what
Unfold.
they shot,
Mhm.
and I still felt like it needed something special to make it, to put it out, and we never either had the time or the resources or even just the maybe not even the right people to tell it. Like I'm okay with that. Like if someone came to me and was like, yo, we got this much better editor that we want to do this piece, I'd be like, cool, man. Like this is such an important thing that I have no ego when it comes to like who handles it, because
It just needs to be.
it just needed something special,
Mhm.
and we just didn't have that for whatever reason. So it had to be like,
We appreciate your transparency because that's important.
yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I always joke about, so. Did you ever read the book Things Fall Apart?
Mm-mm.
Chinua Achebe, he's a Nigerian author. Grew up in England, and he's a professor of literature, and he wrote this book Things Fall Apart, and it's about Nigeria back in like early 1700s, 1800s, where before the missionary were already arriving, but it was still early. And there's this like town where they had their own little thing, and then tragedies. I don't know, like talk like spoiling because you do want to read it, but tragedy struck, and the town, you know, went through some stuff, and it perfectly dovetails with the arrival of the missionaries, basically. And this is such a powerful story. Like it's one of the most famous books out there that anyone's written about rural old time Nigeria. And for whatever reason, it's never been made into a movie or a TV show or anything. And I'm always like, I wonder why. And it took me a while, but I was like, maybe no one's ever felt like they had enough to tell the story.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a story that's so, powerful that you just gotta let it be. It doesn't need to be made. And maybe it does it, or maybe
Not
no
the right
one's
time.
exactly. There's not the right time, or someone who hasn't come along and is worthy of telling that story yet. So
I
let
like
it
you
sit.
said that, worthy of telling it, because
Oh, yeah.
there's some people that just can't do a story justice.
No.
And it just has so much impact. And,
No, yeah. It's funny because so my wife and I, we were watching this series on Paramount last night. It's called The Offer. I don't know if you watch it.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the making of The Godfather,
Yeah.
the movie The
Mhm.
Godfather. And I had seen the series already, and I thought it was all right. But my wife hadn't seen it, so she was like, "I want to watch it." So I was like, "Yeah, we'll watch it." And
It's like a documentary.
yeah, it's based on this book by this guy Al Ruddy,
Mm-hmm.
who was a producer of The Godfather, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a book afterwards, and this show is about that book.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I bring it up because at the beginning of making The Godfather, there was that idea too of like, this is a very Italian American story. We can't just get anyone to tell it.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be Francis Ford Coppola because
Yeah.
he understood
Yeah,
it.
understood, yeah.
So like in that same vein of like, sometimes you need the right person, and if you can't get the right person, it's better to just let it be,
Let it be,
and to say we gotta tell this story. You don't have to do shit.
yeah.
You can, the story can live, you
Mhm.
know. And that's what I always think about when I think about Things Fall Apart. It's
Yeah.
like it's just not ready yet, you
I'm
know.
glad you brought that up because I hesitated for a second because when you brought it up about the documentary film about
The Godfather.
The Godfather,
Yeah.
it's something dawned on me that did you work on the girl? It was like what's that? It was the Henry Hitchcock movie with the birds and I forgot what it was, but they were telling the backstory onto the popular scene where the lady walks into the room and you see like all the birds attacking her.
Oh, the Hitchcock
The
film.
Hitchcock film,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
they did the story behind what happened in that scene, and it's called The Girl.
Okay.
And so basically, the same thing. It took some time for people to tell that story because it was kind of horrific how they had the actual birds attacking her.
Yeah.
And not only once, he wanted to do it again and again.
Oh yeah,
and again,
yeah,
right? And I realized
multiple takes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he was like basically punishing her.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh God. Yeah. That's, there are some directors from. There's a few books I've read about directors from back then, and sometimes, yeah, it could be. I'm an editor, but my goal is to direct, right? Like, I think that's usually part of why everyone gets into this business. Is you want to make your own shit because you were inspired by something,
Right?
And you're like, yeah, this could be cool. So I've read a ton of books about those directors, and it's always fascinating with their process of getting what they need for specific scenes. So I remember reading about The Exorcist, that movie, and it's by Billy Friedkin. And there's a scene in it where the priest first comes to the house and sees the girl who's like demonic, and he has to like cast the demon out of her and whatever. And I remember reading about that scene, and apparently Friedkin, the director, when the priest first, they used a real priest for that scene because they wanted to feel as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
So when the priest came in and they did a couple of takes, Friedkin was like, man, this priest he's not showing that sense of fear, shock, horror that he needs. So apparently Friedkin, the director, walks up to the priest and goes, Father, do you trust me? The priest was like, yeah. And he like smacks him really hard across the face. Like hits him so hard. The priest is like, what the fuck just happened? He's like, all right, roll it right now. And the priest is still like in that shock of like, did this guy just slap me? That they rolled it, and that was how he got the effect he needed from the priest. Like, I obviously wouldn't recommend that because that's a lawsuit. But like, sometimes it's funny when you read about, how there's a scene in that same movie too where Ellen Burstyn plays the mom, and there's a scene where the daughter like does something and she pushes her, like she flies across the room. Ellen Burstyn does. And they have a rig that they built for her where someone pulls her. She's got like wires, a movie magic.
Yeah.
And she gets pulled across the room by this wire. And they did it a couple of times. And Ellen Burstyn, I remember in the story, she goes to tell the guy who does the pulling, is like, yo, can you ease up a little bit? I feel like the last two one we did, I feel a little pain in my back. And apparently Friedkin went to the guy afterwards, like, don't listen to her. Just pull it harder this next time. And it's kind of fucked up because like she actually really hurt her back filming that scene. But like he's one of those directors, like it needs to look a certain way, and it becomes almost like abuse, which it is. But like in the end, the movie becomes the sensation it becomes, and you're like, well, was it worth it? It's like, well, maybe not to her, or the priest that got slapped in the face.
Mhm.
You
Or
know,
the one that got the birds. Like,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. You know, it's like almost the mystique of working in film or TV or in the field where you need humans to pretend, and sometimes pretending is just not enough.
Mhm.
You need the real shit. You know, it's the reason why movies like Blair Witch Project kind of sticks with us, because it feels real.
Right.
You know, even though it's not. And a lot of elements of films like that is real. You know, like it could be the real people. Even like TV shows, like say The Wire. You know, those people were, a lot of the people in The Wire were real.
Yeah.
You know,
They
they
got
weren't.
casted. Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't actors, and it transmits. You can feel it as an audience
Mhm.
watching it. You know.
I actually saw something on TikTok about John Wick 4. I think that's
Yeah.
the one that
Right,
came
right,
out.
right.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how stunt doubles don't get enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
The stunt performers, because there's a scene where I guess they're like John Wick is like chasing somebody down the stairs.
Yeah.
And the stunt double, I think it was a ninja. Basically, it was just they fell down the stairs, you know, in bruises and pain. You could tell that.
Yeah, it hurts.
So it's like that hidden factor, the back end that we don't see.
Oh, yeah.
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 But then it's the same sense how you get to, you know, you edit it and you know, this people, they don't get enough credit.
No. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy. You know, it's not just plain pretend.
It's a lot of hard work.
It's a lot of work,
feel
man.
That's you guys are on like that same group because you guys are putting in that work, that effort. It's not really shown to.
Well, yeah, and as an editor too, it's almost like as an editor specifically, the way it's described sometimes is like you're like a referee in the game. No one came here to watch you, and once people notice you, it means something went wrong, right? So like as an editor, if someone ever goes, "Hey, I noticed something about the editing," it kind of means you're fucked up because your job is to make it so seamless that people aren't even thinking about what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, you're like so deep in the shadows that it's once people start noticing you, something bad is happening. You're doing something that's kind of, it's almost like when you early in your editing, if you're trying to teach a new editor how to edit, one of the things you learn is pacing. And pacing basically is how long it takes between shots before you move to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get it wrong, it's noticeable. If you're watching something and that is badly paced, even you as a person who doesn't understand editing, you'll be like, something's weird about this thing I'm watching. It doesn't feel right. But if you get that pacing right, you can be watching the most horrific thing. But if the pacing's right, you don't even think about it. You're like, all right, I'm so focused on what I'm watching that it's almost like when, the way I like to think about it is if someone's playing music and they're playing it off key, and you can, that feeling you get when you're like, something's off. Like you're singing and I'm playing piano and I'm like maybe a key off from your singing. You're like, something feels weird about what this guy's doing. Same thing with editing.
I got the perfect scenario because Bel Air just came out. I don't know if you watched it. You started watching it.
People, I had a party at the house. People started watching it. I watched it, and then I was like, "This is not for me," and I left the house.
The new season came out, so Will he's going up and shooting it, right?
Yeah.
He's playing a basketball game. He's about to go for a layup. It cuts, and then you see homie comes and do a windmill.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, sometimes you can do that as a technique,
Okay.
You're trying to jar the audience in a way. I don't know if you noticed, but Spike Lee does this a lot, where someone gets up and we're about to dap, and it cuts to another angle, and it's still us trying to dap. You know, like in the seamless fashion of it, if I get up and you get up and we're dapping in this angle, by the time I cut to the next angle, we should already be dapping.
Like completed.
Yeah. But he does the thing where he will like roll it back a little bit when it goes to the next cut, and it feels like we're dapping like 3 times. It's very
Oh,
subtle, but he
yeah,
does it all the
yeah.
time. It's like his.
But you gotta
almost
have the
like,
eye for it.
Yeah,
And you gotta
and
notice it.
and it's it could also happen in a scene where it's not necessary for you to be seamless. You know, it could also be like a signature thing for
Oh,
directors.
see,
Where you're
yeah,
like, all right,
yeah.
Yeah.
That's his tag.
he does that. He does the thing where he puts his actors on the dolly, and they're like moving forward, but they're not walking, and they're just being. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember.
I remember
If
that.
you
yeah,
if you
yeah.
watch,
I didn't. I
any-
never used to like that though.
yeah,
It just seemed
if you
fake.
watch any Spike Lee
Yeah,
films,
but
he
that
does
is-
that a
that
lot,
is
where
it,
he'll
yeah,
like put
yeah.
the camera on the dolly,
Yeah.
and they're like moving, and it shows almost like it's like a rage or emotional, strong emotions happening.
But it was always during like a climax scene or like
Yeah.
an intense scene.
Yeah, if you remember, I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Huh?
Inside Man. he
Inside
did that.
Man, yeah. Denzel's moving
Mhm.
forward in 25th Hour.
25th
He does
Hour,
it
did that
with
too.
Anna Paquin when she leaves and she's drunk because she's like a high schooler who's not supposed to be drinking with those guys, and she gets up and she's like feeling herself, and it's just the dolly moving her, and she's just moving in slow motion.
He also does the monologue thing where,
He does monologue too.
Focus on like the actor or actress is always speaking in the camera.
Yeah.
Going crazy. Or
He breaks the fourth.
Yeah,
he breaks the
he
fourth
does.
wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does that in the famous monologue in 25th Hour where Ed Norton just like rants in the
What's
bathroom.
the fourth wall?
It's when you're looking directly at the camera and you're like looking at the audience. Yeah, it's called breaking the fourth. It's like a old. It's from like back when plays were a thing. They're the only thing, and the fourth wall would be like, so say the audience is sitting at this angle, and so there's this wall, and this wall behind us, 3 walls. The fourth wall will be that one where the audience is. And the trick is you never look directly at them because then it's almost like you're stepping out of what you're doing over here. So if we're talking and they're watching us over there, that's the fourth wall. So if I ever turn over there and I look directly at them, I'm breaking the fourth wall. So that's the same idea. Because 1 wall, 2 wall, 3 walls, 4.
Fourth wall is the camera.
Yeah. So like when Spike does that with, say Ed Norton in 25th Hour, it's you use it to tell a message. It's almost like you're
You want to emphasize something.
Yeah, it's exactly, that's the right word. It's that thing of like, all right, I'm gonna break the rule of film, but I'm doing it for a reason. And it's one of those tricks you do. Same with the dapping, and you run it back 3 times. You're doing something that's usually not done, but you're doing it for a reason. Yeah, even like narrating. I remember when I took screenwriting in college at Hunter, and because one of my favorite film ever is Goodfellas.
That's the best.
And I remember my screenwriting professor was like, because she gave us an assignment to write something, and I like put voiceovers, and she's like, don't put voiceovers in your stuff. It's not a good way to learn how to write, because it's almost like
cheating.
Yeah, it's almost like cheating. It's like you have like a voice of God telling the audience stuff. You can just show them, And she's right, but voiceover is one of those things where you're breaking the rules, but if you use it well,
added effect.
It works perfectly. Like you watch any Scorsese film, and the voiceover is just perfect because it helps. It's
one of my best films is Roman.
Oh yeah.
And,
is it?
No, it's with what's his name? Al Pacino, not Al Pacino. The other one. Robert De Niro. Yeah, it was Robert De Niro. It was wrong.
And one or the other.
Yeah. But that was one of my favorite films to watch, Ronan, and it's one of those things. I like films that has like some kind of someone narrating.
Yeah.
Right, because then you want to get the perspective of the person, like what they thinking, and it just adds another dimension to it.
Yeah.
So it's
and it's an extra voice.
It's an extra voice, but
which could tell
also
the story.
It's an extra story.
Yeah.
Right, because you're watching it, but then you're also hearing the person internally what they're thinking and what they're processing.
The tricky ones, because this has happened a few times too, and I'm always like, oh shit, that's cool. Is because when you hear a voiceover narration, you're thinking, this is what happened,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes directors do one where the narration is lying to you, like, because initially you believe, because like you hit play on the movie and you hear a narrator, you're like, all right, they're telling me what's happening,
Mhm.
you believe it, but like I forget which film I watched lately that did that, but like,
It has a plot and twist.
yeah, the narrator is someone you can't trust,
Mm.
but you're trusting them at the beginning because you're like, oh, of course, why
He's the
wouldn't?
person,
Yeah,
right?
it's almost like that's why sometimes they call it the voice of God, because it's a person you're not seeing, it's just a voice you're hearing. So, and that fact alone, that's not a person you're seeing on screen saying those words, makes it feel, ethereal. Like, oh, this is a big time shit. And you think, all right, well, if it's a big time, it must be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget which one I saw where it was like, nope, it's not true. It's just bullshit. And you spent the whole whatever.
I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna pay attention to that.
Yeah, you spent half the movie believing what that narration was saying, but
Meanwhile, there was a plot and twist.
Yeah.
Ambulance started like that.
I like the ambulance.
Yeah,
by the
is that the
way.
one with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yes.
Yeah, I
I
remember
like
watching that.
I like that.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
Bronx Tale, that's a good movie.
Bronx Tale
yeah.
has the narration too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that movie. So I started talking about her name, the girl that he liked in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I just like it when you watch a director's films long enough that you can like turn on their movie at any point. It could be halfway through, and you watch maybe like 5 minutes of it, and you're like, oh yeah, it's a so and so movie.
Right,
Like,
right.
I just saw something. It's a Spike Lee movie. I'm
Mm.
watching. Like, it's just yeah. You're like, you don't even need to be told. You just watch maybe 5 minutes of it. You're like, all right, yeah. And that to me, that's like up there. You know,
Yeah.
when you're like that level of like, you have your own voice and you stick to it, and the audience loves it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good. And Tarantino, Scorsese, Spike Lee, even someone like Chris Nolan, Tyler Perry, yeah. Those guys where you can like turn on David Fincher, you can turn on their movies and you're like, yeah. Jordan Peele, he's got some now where you're like, all right, you can tell there's a style, there's a way they shoot. The Coen brothers, the way they hold the camera,
Mm-hmm.
the way even the dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
the way people talk, you're like, yeah. That's
What do you think about Michael B. Jordan?
I think he's a nice guy. It's just like a really good dude. Nah, I'm messing around. As an actor,
I think he's pretty good, but now he's
I think
stepping
he's
into
alright.
directing.
I think he's alright.
Did you guys see Creed 3?
I haven't yet.
I've heard good reviews about Creed 3, and he directed that.
Yeah, it's his first
first
director
one,
debut. Yeah, as an actor, I think he's alright. I don't think he's the best.
Mm.
I think sometimes I find it hard to get lost in his acting, but
People may not understand what you mean by get lost in the acting.
I think it's just like I can see him acting, which is not. It's almost like editing. It's that thing where you can see it happening, means something bad is happening. Like I said, with editing, if you ever notice editing happening as you're watching something, then it's bad editing.
Yeah.
Same with acting. If you can go, that guy looks like he's acting, then it's not good acting.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So sometimes I see that with him sometimes, but I think he's a good actor.
Yeah.
Do you think 50 Cent, does he direct as well, or he produces with all the power?
Oh, I'm pretty sure he just produces.
Yeah, I think he produced.
I
But
think
he made a good observation too, similar to what you were saying about catching certain edits and the angles.
Mm.
But he was showing something that happened, and he was saying, "See this," and I think it was part of Stars Network. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
basically, the woman there was a scene where the person was going by, and the same exact scene. I probably wouldn't even notice it because I don't have that trained eye. But 50 Cent pointed out, like, 1 minute the woman had like a napkin in her hand,
Oh
and the next
yeah,
minute it wasn't there. As
yeah.
they crossed the scenes, you
I
know
mean,
how you go from one scene to the
I wouldn't
next.
call that editing error. That's more continuity error, and that happens a lot too.
Break that down. What's that?
All continuity is like when you shoot a scene, yeah, and then you don't do what you did a few takes, and you do something. Like sometimes it's also not an error. Sometimes it's practical. So like I remember, if you ever watch, I forget which one it is, but one of those new Jurassic World films. It might be the first one. Uh, it might be the first one. But like there's scenes in it where, they run away from the dinosaurs, or whatever, and there's a
Yeah, all
chick
of them,
is-
they run away from the dinosaurs.
they're running away, yeah,
I'm
they're
like,
running away from
which
something.
one?
Yeah, one of the first ones, not Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
Jurassic World, the
Okay,
new
yeah.
ones. Anyway, she's running away from something. It's probably a dinosaur, and maybe a T-Rex. And she's like wearing heels in one shot, and then the next shot she's wearing flats, and then the next shot, like, it's like,
Obvious.
yeah, it's so obvious, and so like that's continuity. It's just kind of like, all right, this take of her in this specific one is good, but the next take, which is also good, the next shot, the take for that's also really good. Unfortunately, she's wearing heels in that one. We want to keep it, so we'll use it.
So they really catch it, and they're like,
Yeah, it's not like they missed it. I'm pretty sure. No. These movies go through so many QCs, so many watch downs, that I'm pretty sure those people who make it are well aware. Like there's things. So like in post production, editing, direct, all that stuff, you watch what you're making so many times, more than any person in the audience is ever gonna watch it, unless it's unless it's a really really good film and someone really really likes it. But like, so there's things that if I'm watching something, I still annoy my wife a lot with this when she's watching the show, one of her like Bravo TV shows, and I'll like notice something and she wouldn't notice it, and she'd be like, "Shut up!" Like, what are you talking about? I'll be like, "Yo, that I can see the boom mic up there," and she's like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that." I'm like, "Yeah, my job is to notice shit like that and get it out of there." But like, so the idea is that I do it so often with the same scene that even the smallest thing that I notice, I get it out, so that by the time the audience watches it, they don't even notice anything. So when shit like continuity happens, where someone's wearing a scarf and they're not, and this is different, that I'm always, I always try to tell people, like, it's not like they forgot. They've seen it. It's just they're hoping that what's happening in that scene is a lot more captivating, that you're not noticing that stuff, because unfortunately they had to keep that stuff.
That's probably like the best scene.
Yeah, that's the best take. They couldn't lose it. They would prefer to not do that, clearly.
Yeah.
Like I would prefer if she's not wearing the heels and then flats and the heels again in the same sequence. But it just worked out that way, that we had to keep it. So
yeah,
and that happens a lot. Like if you go on like movie IMDb pages and you scroll all the way down, they always have a section called continuity errors, and I bet you every movie you've ever watched, there's a stack of them there, and you can go back and look at it, and they'll tell you like, oh, by the way, I remember one that back in college. This is before I started noticing this stuff. I had a professor who was like, all right, you ever watch The Graduate?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, there's a scene in The Graduate that I'm going to spoil for you guys now forever. And it was like, so just be ready. It's like, all right, what scene is it? So there's a scene in it where, what's his name? Fuck. The main guy from The Graduate. I can't remember his name now. Anyway, he grabs the girl that he likes, because he had been sleeping with her mom. He grabs her and he like pulls her to another side of the table, like to like talk to her like sternly. And what happens with cameras is like you have markers on the ground. Because, like, so if I'm getting up and I'm walking that way, I have a marker on the ground for where I'm going to stand so that the camera that's over there doesn't need to be refocused. It's already
In focus.
in focus for that position.
Scene, right.
Yeah. So for that, there's a marker on the ground. Me as an actor, I walk and then I stop right at that marker so that the camera has me focused perfectly. They don't need to switch anything. So all the time when you go, if you ever go on set of a film, there'll be markers on the ground for where the actors are going to move. It's just perfect. The trick is, as an actor, you're not supposed to look at it because then you're not in the scene anymore. So there's a scene in there where Dustin Hoffman grabs her and he looks down just to make sure that he's putting her
in the right
where, and then he
marker.
looks up real quick. It's really fast. You barely notice it. And if no one ever tells you about it, you wouldn't even notice it. But he was like, all right, now you showed us the scene and we're like, whoa, what's wrong? And he goes, all right, I'm going to play for you again, but look at Dustin Hoffman the whole time. And you can see him go like, and he quickly looks down and all right. And then he picks her up. And he's like, yeah. So now whenever I watch that scene, I'm like, damn it, I can see that now. But like that's that's an error. But you wouldn't see it, because it's so quick and it's so small. And there's a lot of that all over film and TV. And so like I said, if you go pick your favorite movie, go on IMDb and scroll down, and they'll tell you like, oh yeah, in this scene, someone fucked up. But it was so small, you barely noticed it. You didn't even see it. But if you go back and you watch it, you'd be like, oh yeah, look what he's doing over there. He's not supposed to do that. There's a guy in the background who's not doing what he's. Back to the same Jurassic World, whatever movie.
The one where they constantly
when they're running from dinosaurs.
Yeah.
There's a guy in the scene where the dinosaurs at the equivalent of SeaWorld, wherever that they built on this place, and the dinosaurs are broken through, and everyone's running. And there's a guy in there who's grabbing 2 drinks while he's running. Like, he's like, all right, I'm going to get these 2 drinks while I run from the deadly monster chasing us. And it's really funny, but, like, you barely notice it. But, like, if you go back and you watch it, you can see him. Like, it's like, I'm going to just grab these 2 cocktails while I run from the killing machines.
Now I'm going to go back and look. I'm going to take a look.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Let me ask you a question. How much does, like, if you were to edit, as an editor, in a big budget film like Jurassic, like, what's the payout on that for an editor?
I mean, it depends.
Or on a project like that?
I couldn't say.
Yeah.
I've never worked on something like that before. So, but, like, I have cut a film. It was a very, very low budget, first-time director, not anything, didn't really have a lot of money. But unlike when I work in TV and I'm working for a production house and they pay me, with films like that, especially if it's like indie, low budget, it would just be like, I'll pay you a fixed amount of money, and then you either say yes or no, and then you work on it,
right? And
then they pay you that amount of money when you finish, So I think, yeah. But like for something as big as like a blockbuster like that, it might still be the same idea of structure of payment, but it'll obviously be a lot more, because like at that point it's your agent talking to the studio,
negotiating price.
Same with directors, same with producers.
But on TV they don't do the same thing.
Not really, no, because they discuss your rate. So, like, funny enough, starting on BET on Monday, I feel like I can talk about this. No big deal. And if I need to tell you to edit it out, you can edit it out. But, like,
congratulations.
Thank you. But, like, they were like, and usually it happens the same way with every job I have. They'll be like, all right, we want you to start a blah, blah, blah date. It's going to be for 6 months, 8 months, whatever. And it'll be like, well, so what's your rate? That's when it gets really fun because, like, we live in a society where people get very nervous or anxious or whatever it is when it comes to talking about money, especially when it comes to compensation. It's like, I don't want to see too much. And like, it's another thing where you get older and you start understanding, like, no, fucking talk about it. Like, don't be shy about asking for what you want. Like, it's your livelihood. Tell them what you want. Don't worry about them. They'll figure out how much they can pay you. You tell them how much you want.
How much you're worth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, and like I said, I've been working for over 10 years now. When I first started out, I'm sure all my responses to that question would be like, well, I can take this and then we can negotiate it, blah, blah. Because I want to do the job. And, I'm still new, so I can. But now I'm like, listen, I make blah, blah, blah. Let me know if that works for you guys. And I leave it there, and that's it. And then they'll get back to you. They'll be like, well, all right, we can do that. Like when I did the Bravo show, and as you get more and more jobs, you learn that, when someone asks you for how much your rate is, you take that number, then you add like 500, and then you tell them that's what it is. Because, why not?
Yeah. Well, they're going to try to negotiate
down
anyway.
They do their part too. Like, one of my best friends, Jonas, he's a post supervisor. So his job is literally to hire editors, amongst other things. But one of the things he does is hire editors. And like, he would be like, yeah, usually the studio will give us a budget. And it's my job to try to convince the best editor I want that I can only pay him a certain amount. Even though I could probably pay him a little more. But, I'm trying to run the fucking business here. So I'll be a bit more conservative. And it's their job as editors to go, no, I want this. If you want me and you want my talent on your production, this is how much it costs. And like I said, if you're young and new in the business, it takes a while to get to that point because it's not exactly being pushed around. It's just you're trying to prove yourself more than the company is trying to acquire you. Now, if you've been working for a while, that balance shifts. The company is trying to acquire you more than you're trying to prove anything to them. So it's on them to like meet you where you're at. When you're young, it's the other way around. You're trying to meet them because you're like, yo, I'm still new at this. I'm trying to up my game. So the way it works, in TV is, they ask you for how much your rate is. Basically, how much are you worth? And you tell them. And then you leave it there. And then they get back to you and they'll be like, all right, maybe we can come somewhere in the middle. Or like Bravo, they were like, yo, I think I said I was like 4,000. And they were like, well,
4,000 an hour or 4,000
a week.
A week, okay.
And they were like, well, we're at 3,500. And I was like, sorry, 4,000 is what I do. They're like, okay, we'll let you know. We'll figure some stuff out. And they came back, they were like, well, we can do like 3,800. I was like, all right, that's cool. Let's do 38. I guess I'll live on 38. But like, that's how it works. Like, literally, you're, and they know too. They know, they know all the tricks. They know that whatever number you're giving them, you're probably putting up a little more than usual, and that's part of the dance, But
yeah.
Exactly. I can make it work. I guess.
Figure it out. Yeah.
I'll try to feed my kids on this tiny shit you're paying me, even though it's a lot of money compared to a lot of people.
That's true too. If you had like two advice that you would recommend to somebody that's trying to become an editor, what would you say?
I think for the first one is not even just for editors. I remember telling my brother Sam this when he first graduated from Syracuse, and I was like, it's a very small world in a lot of ways. Like, especially in my business. I can't tell you how many times I've worked at a different company and I will run into someone that I've worked with at a previous place. It happens all the time. I'm sure when I show up for BET on Monday, there'll be someone in there who I've worked with at some point in the past. It's just the way it is. And with that in mind, I remember telling my brother Sam, I was like, listen, don't be an asshole. Just don't.
revert.
Yeah, you can't. It's just you're gonna meet these people again, and if you put your best foot forward when they meet you the first time, they're gonna remember that. People remember everything, especially if you're good at what you do. It's if you're kind of mediocre and not terrible but not awesome, maybe you get lost in the shuffle and no one remembers. But if you're a piece of shit, they remember. No one forgets. Or if you're like really, really good and they can depend on you, they remember that too. Like they always remember that. Like one of my first early jobs when I would work, my first time. So like I said, I worked at night for a while, and then when I first got my first daytime job, I would be at the office at like 9 in the morning, and I was whenever they would be like, "Yo, we need someone to like work a little later tonight, maybe like till 9 p.m." It's like solid 12-hour day, and which is a lot of people don't like doing that. I'd be like, "Yeah, I can do it." I made sure I was the guy they knew they can go to whenever they needed someone to like go the extra mile. And it was because I was starting out, and I just realized, and someone told me earlier, like, listen, if you make yourself dependable and you make yourself, useful for everyone in this, even for the guy who cleans in the evening, you make him realize that he can call you to help him out if he needs help, then you can go a long way. Because if for whatever reason people need to get fired and maybe the company's losing money, you're kind of the last person that they want to lose because they're like, well, you know everything. We need to keep you around because you're the Swiss Army knife that we're probably gonna need when we fire all these fuckers. So you stay. And not only that, it when you leave and you go to a different job and you run into that person again, or if they leave and they need to hire someone, they're like, yo, I know this kid from the place I used to work at. You should talk to him. He'll hook you up.
Mhm.
I can put my reputation down for him. Like, and that's what I told Sam, my brother, when he graduated. I was like, for hand to God, all the jobs I've had since I've been working in TV, I've had them through someone else. I think I've only sat down to interview for a job maybe once ever, and that might be for Vice. And that was also because I already got through the first step, which someone hooked me up. My buddy Steven Roberts, he's the one who was working at Vice, who was like, yo, I know this guy, you should hire him. And then I got through that first door. And so I always tell Sam that because I was like, people are how you're going to get the jobs. That's all. And BET too. He's the one who sent this person my information. And then she texted me like on like Monday night. It's like, listen, Steven told me about you. You're free right now. We need to hire someone. He speaks highly of you. Do you want to talk to us for a minute? And that's it. I'm always like, so when you work at a place, it's so easy to not be an asshole. It really is.
Mhm.
And maybe they give you a reason to, and that's fair. That happens. But you got to swallow that sometimes because it comes back around. It always does. And I think, I don't know if you can say the same, but in my field, it is. It for sure is. You're going to meet these people again sometime, and they'll remember. And so I always say, like, a friend of mine told me years ago, he's like, you got to look at jobs like an apartment almost. First month, last month. First month, and those are the months you're on your best behavior. Like the best, even go overboard. Because first month, you just got there, you don't want to wild out too much. You're new. Last month, you're about to leave. You got to give them something to remember you by. So you up that shit again. You go the extra mile. Because, especially when you're new, when you're young, when you're 25. Because then they remember you. They think about you. If someone ever goes, yo, I'm looking for an editor. Do you know anyone? They'll be like, yeah, I know this kid. He was really, really good. At least the last month I knew he was amazing. And they give you. So that's my first advice. And like, Again, like I said, not just for film or TV, just overall, whatever you do. Sam works in finance, so like he doesn't work in my field, but I think the advice applies.
Same principles apply.
Yeah, you make sure. And listen, it could also be a personality thing. I just always felt, like I said, to me, it always feels like I have to do an extra to be an asshole to someone. It just feels like I have to, and I'm like notoriously lazy. So like, if being an asshole means I have to do extra shit, I'd rather be nice. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like you were mean to me, whatever. I'm just gonna go. You gotta live with that. I'll go my way.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. So like, it's just it makes it easier. Second advice in film, I feel like, I mean, like I said, my goal. So as a kid, my dad was like super into James Bond films and like Bollywood. Like we used to watch all those.
Bollywood, see?
Yeah, I love Bollywood.
Yeah, that's my wife's thing.
Oh man, hour and a half of singing in between a movie. It's great.
Singing and dancing.
Oh my God, it's amazing. We used to watch that all the time. And, and that's probably where my love of film came from. I just never thought about it until I got to college and I realized I wanted to do film. And I just knew, like, I always loved this medium, but I just never thought about it as a job, as like something people do for a living. It never crossed my mind that way. So I say that because then it becomes, I want to be a director. I want to direct movies. But like, after college, a bunch of my friends were like, yo, we're going to move to LA. And we're going to like sleep on couches and just like go on sets and just hang out there and hope someone gives us a job. And I that just never sounded appealing to me. I wanted the same goals that they wanted, but I just felt like I don't know if I want to do all that. So I was like, well, if I want to direct, becoming an editor is probably a good way to keep that path going. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to become an editor. And, I can make a good life. And if I get to a place as an editor where I'm very secure, then I can move to the next step of directing. And, I have a good backup. If whatever reason I direct and maybe I suck at it, all right, I got another job I can turn to. I'll be fine. So, and that would be my advice is always have a plan. It's always useful. And I had that plan when I was 21 years old, because that's the other thing. I don't think you need to be of wise old age to plan your path. You can do it at 17. People do it. People do it at 14, Just have a plan and try to stick to it, It probably changed, like I said earlier. I never saw myself doing news as an editor, but here I am. I've been doing news now for almost over 6 years. I have an Emmy at home because of it. But like, it was never my plan, but it happened that way. And that's the thing, like, you have a plan, but it might deviate once in a while. But if you're still in the same direction, which I feel like I am, I'm still on that editing path that I set for myself, 12 years ago. But like, it's you're still going. That's right. The whole idea. Yeah. So like, have a plan. Find people who can help you along the way, and just make sure you keep going in that direction. Things, it'll fall into place. And like I said, you'll have things here and there that might shake it up a bit. You might go take a different route, but like, as long as you keep like, all right, I'm gonna keep. And like, who knows? I'm not even at the end of mine yet. I'm still editing. It's not like I've directed my movies yet. I still want to do it, but like, I'm still on the way. Who knows? Maybe in 10 years I'll be doing something else and still on that road. But I feel like you find things about yourself once you've, yeah, exactly. And like, it can be tough, it can be easy, it can be whatever, but that's life in the end.
Stay the path.
Yeah.
That's my dad. He always says that.
Yeah.
I want to get it tatted on my
It's like it's the North Star, you know.
It's the North Star.
You
Yeah.
keep it in sight, and things might go, you know, but who cares, man? Like keep that light burning, and maybe one day, you know, I'll get to direct something. Maybe I won't. Who knows?
That's what I'm talking about, James.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Hey, man, this has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for this.
Yeah.
Most importantly.
No, it's been great. Thank you,
Yeah.
guys. Where can people reach you, or do you want that? I can always
Instagram?
edit out Instagram.
Yeah. I used to work for Vice, not
No,
anymore.
no. Let them know your Instagram, because then we're gonna get
Oh,
into
okay.
that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's JAY underscore DBN. That's it. It's right there.
J or JAY?
JAY underscore DBN. Yeah.
I do want to touch on I wanted for us to get to the point where we were going to talk about your mother's story, because that's what was important.
That's initially, yeah.
But then after you said, you know, the whole thing about the right setting, the right time, and I said, oh, maybe this may not be the right time.
Yeah,
we can do it again.
Yeah, sure. Let me know. No,
Yeah,
that,
I love that
was
story.
the initial.
But then I thought about that was the initial.
That was the initial.
But then after you
thought.
said that, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
we got to do it right.
Yeah, we'll do the
Oh,
beginning.
get another drink, brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do the beginning.
I'm not forcing you, am I?
Nah.
Okay, good.
I do got to drive, but I think 2 is enough. 2 is good.
Yeah, 2 is enough. You just let me know when.
Yeah, thank you.
All
right. We'll do the beginning, Ebbetsfield projects,
all that,
all that,
all that, every detail.